Hello, everybody. I'm deloaded.
And welcome to the second episode
What?
of the
No,
DonFuer
no,
podcast.
you didn't say I'm Zeiss.
Oh my god.
You didn't say it.
Why does this go poorly every single time?
Do it again. We have to do it again.
Okay.
I'm deloaded.
And I am Zeiss, and welcome to the second episode of the DonFuer podcast. Today, our special guest is Joeycocanut, a longtime 2B2T player.
Hello.
And, and we're going to do a little bit of an interview and have a chat about some stuff. So, we'll start off with how and when you joined 2B2T.
Uh, so I joined in June of 2015. A friend of mine was playing a pretty decent while before me, like almost a year or so. He'd been talking it up for a while, and I finally said, hell with it. I'll try this thing out. I was getting kind of bored of. I was doing a lot of factions in Townie at the time, and I started playing 2B for a little bit, but I didn't stick around like too much. I was a very on and off person. I'd play a couple weeks here, a couple days there. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd wander around spawn and farm melons and talk and chat a little bit, mostly just reading, to be honest.
And this
But
is back when the population of the server was pretty small.
the population was very small. Yeah, no, I am.
Like how many players were
It was.
online at any given time?
It's difficult to estimate. My hard drive died on me, but on my old one, I have a screenshot of it's just me online. There was some points where it was that dead.
Wow.
There was other points where you'd have dozens of people online. I mean, it was population wise, it was like any old middling server. You'd have high points and low points. It was constantly changing though, but there was a very stable population though, even if the numbers weren't always because like people would come and they'd play, they'd stop for a couple weeks or months, they'd come back, stuff like that.
Right. Well, that's interesting. It was a big difference back in the day. But
Very much
uh,
so.
yeah, so you've been a part of some pretty major projects on 2B. One of which the probably the most well known is Block Game Mecca. Uh, do you want to tell us a little bit about how that happened and how that got to be and something like that?
Yeah. So this story goes back a little bit, actually. Really fun thing. So as I hope everyone knows at this point, this YouTuber joined in early 2016 to mid 2016, and he dropped this video on June 1st. His name's the Camping Rusher. Big surprise.
Yep.
Well, I came back and I met a lot of people in like August, something like that, and we formed this group called Invictus. Bunch of good friends there. Some of them I still talk to this day. Um, but we had a number of bases. Some were good, some weren't. That's how it goes. But we had that group for a while, and we ended up we went around and did a lot of things. Um, but the thing that like the big thing that I think really caused Mecca that does not get talked about is we griefed this base La Rosa, which is uh, honestly for the size it was and the importance of the people that were there. I'm surprised it's not really talked about. It was actually a very nice base, but the members of Invictus, we blew that up and we took all the materials and we built that base we called Invictus. It was really the second one though. Some funky naming conventions there, but we took all those materials. But that introduced our group to a player by the name of Cartman, who Cartman's a very cool guy. I never really got to know him very well, but eventually, so one of the major guys in our group, Slapping Bad Kids, a lot of people know him as Autism Bot. Uh, really funny story actually. So Cartman sent Jared to go befriend Slappin and get all of our shit back. Um, Jared went, and Slappin ended up befriending him and Frickin', and they all ended up basing together. And from that, there was a couple projects, and from those projects came the BGM group. Um, we picked up a lot of most of the people were just from randos we met on the highways. Actually, that's how I became involved. That's how most of the others became involved.
Nice.
But for the BGM group, very very interesting group of people. I couldn't have picked better base mates if I tried.
It's a very different way of finding a group of people to build a base with.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, we picked up some random people that we thought were chill. We based some people that we griefed, and that's what you get. You get some cool bases when they don't blow it up.
Cool.
Typically, basing with people you grief is a terrible idea, right?
You'd think that, and
Yeah.
usually you would be correct, but in that case, it wasn't. And honestly, it was because of slapping. Because you look at the old BGM chat logs, you look at the top, and the first thing you see is, "What the hell? Why is so and so here? I don't want to base with them. This person's leaky. This person's gonna blow it up." Stuff like that. But credit where credit's due, he held that together fairly well.
Nice. So, what about the Short Bus Caliphate? That's your group. How did that happen?
So that's an interesting story there. So I was a very very edgy teen, much more edgy than I am now. Um, but I've had this interest from a very early age. I like learning about other cultures, how other people see the world, what makes them tick. I think it's really cool. And at that point, it was like mid 2017. I had started to read the Quran, and I never finished it. Variety of reasons, but in any case, you tend to joke about the things that you at least know a little bit about, or maybe don't fully understand. It's a lot easier to joke about them. And so I started months and months and months. I would talk about just various, very low level Islamic doctrinal things in the various chats that we shared with the BGM group. And it was a very edgy thing at that point. But at some point, it was either Slappin' or Mothra, but both of them, the three of us, we decided, hey, why don't we make a group out of this? And at the start, it was just BGM members. We picked up a couple people. It was just a big joke. It was never meant to be anything. The whole slogan at that point, if you will, was that it was the most irrelevant group on the server, in fact. And we spammed that fairly often whenever we'd talk about the group. Was that, oh, we're irrelevant guys. We are irrelevant. We'd always hammer that point home. And it really didn't do anything until right after the BGM grief. Um, Jumpy gave coordinates of Purgatory 2, which was Beardler's main base at that point, to Slappin'. And so them, Mothra, and Alpha Computer went and blew up Purgatory 2 as the SBC. Now, group kind of stayed dead for a very long time. And I brought it back like mid to late last year as kind of a joke. And personally, I don't like the brand. I've around to realize I think it's very offensive, and that I don't really like the brand, to be honest. But the members that I have now are very very devoted to it, and they don't want to change it, so I keep it for them. But
Yeah.
I've really come around. I was a very edgy kid, and I think I've realized a lot of my opinions at that point were very
Right.
hurtful.
Yeah, some of the well, that's part of the culture of 2B2T is just being edgy, and sometimes for no reason at all. It's just for the sake of being edgy.
Absolutely.
I mean,
But
It
it
kind of
is
happens when you get a whole bunch of teenagers playing on a server with no rules.
Right.
that's what tends to happen exactly. But at some point, you do have to grow up in a
Yeah.
certain respect.
Yeah. That's good.
That's
It's
not to
good that
say like
this conversation has gone this direction because I was like, oh no, I might have to cut it.
Right.
no. I think it's very important. Like it's always nice to have fun. It's nice to have a total freedom of speech. But there's a very famous quote. I want to say it was Thomas Jefferson. It might have been Ben Franklin. It was one of the founding fathers. But it's every man should have the freedom of speech, but he should also have the common sense when not to say something. I'm paraphrasing very heavily here,
Right.
but that was the gist of it. It's important that the freedom of speech shall not be infringed upon. I think that's a very lofty ideal to um, to hold yourself to, but you have to realize at some point that there's some things that are just better not said.
That's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of interesting things in the 1.17 update. The one that I'm most excited about is the changes to the world height limit.
That looks
Which,
very interesting.
which
I'm playing a snapshot server with some friends, and I can confidently say there is some really cool features in those updates, or in
right.
those snapshots anyway.
Yeah,
It's true.
we don't really know how much of that will actually get transferred into the full fat version of 1.17.
Hopefully a decent bit, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be really weird to, if you're in a 1.16 chunk, and I brought this up with Orson too, like, what would a chunk border look like between a 1.16 chunk and a 1.17 chunk?
It would be an absolute mess unless they have stuff regenerate and Bedrock goes away in old chunks and stuff like that, which would
Right.
be a complete mess for
Bedrock would
something
have
like
to
this.
go away in the
They
old
would have
chunks.
they'd have to do a lot of plug-in tweaking to get that to work properly.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think Tubi will ever update to that update just because of how much stuff would have to be regenerated.
Yeah, but
Right.
even if you're updating a single player world, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be some sort of a wall, if you will, that like you cannot update to this version. Maybe there's nothing preventing you like from trying, but just for optimization's sake, you won't be able to. It'll take functionally too long.
This is one
Well,
of the
keep in
first major updates to terrain generation in a long time.
A really
right.
long time, yeah.
Well,
I mean, there's been changes, but nothing ever quite this severe.
Yeah, this is gonna be insane. Just
keep in
crazy.
mind it's still in snapshot, so they could possibly fix that problem by the time the actual 1.17 update comes out. But it is Mojang, so they probably won't.
How did they fix like suddenly 64 more blocks of bedrock or 64 more blocks underneath you of stone?
I'm assuming they just like keep the original 1.16 and earlier terrain there, and then just fill it with air, like underneath.
Then you could get under the bedrock. You could have a weird situation where you're under the bedrock.
You can get under the bedrock
Yeah, you could do that. It's
anyway.
there's a lot of bedrock holes in Spawn, for instance.
Yeah. In reality, it's probably just going to be a slice and then just a wall.
I think that's very possible. Yeah.
How do you feel about that streamer that joined the other day?
I think it was kind of funny. Like, I don't know why people were so worried. He clearly wasn't very committed to the server. He's already left. He took down his stream even.
Well, people that play on 2B get very bent out of shape when anybody with any kind of following whatsoever even comes close to touching the server, because they think it's going
For
to
sure, but people get too scared
explode
over
the
it.
queue.
See,
It's ridiculous.
they haven't had enough of that stuff happen. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They're too scared. They don't realize that it's really functionally not that much worse than stuff already is.
Right, like there's a new YouTuber joining like every week.
Yeah.
And every single time somebody joins, they're like, "All right, boys, incursion time."
Yeah, they always
Incursion
call for an
time.
incursion. It's so stupid. Like,
Even the
okay.
10th incursion that you did, Joey, and I'm not
Oh yeah,
like that was just a total meme.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, Joey.
So it started out like any other one. Honestly, I didn't get the memo about the whole incursions being dead bullshit. I think it's pretty stupid that you can just declare something like, but whatever. In any case, um, so I picked it up. A lot of people joined. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Because I hadn't participated in one since I7, so it had been a couple years. So I was just happy to see a big community thing. Because see, my thing about 2B, I love building things. I love doing projects and stuff. I like meeting people. I think it's something that a lot of people don't do enough of here. It's a perfect place to meet like-minded people. So I picked up a lot of cool people for I10, and Mr. Beast obviously didn't make that video. He left, and I closed up shop. I was like, okay. I was a little disappointed, but I was like, you know what? I'm really happy we didn't have to go through with this. This would have been horrible. But a bunch of the members were like, hey, Joey, I killed that spawn for this. Hey, I wanted to do something. We got all these people together. And by popular demand, we brought it back then. And obviously there was no Mr. Beast. There wasn't that many new players joining. But incursions that doesn't have to cause one. I mean, people think there's some start condition or some shit like that. That's not the case. I mean, you're playing a game in a sandbox. You can literally do whatever you want. I think people forget that too easily.
Yeah.
And so I decided, hey, you know what? We'll make this against the spawn, all the spawn, annoying kids in spawn.
The spawn PvPers.
Yes. And the enchanting table thing was a complete joke. That started out originally because we just wanted to prevent crystals from being placeable. That's what that originally was. That's why in the earlier stages of it, we weren't doing the chunk ban-esque kind of things. We were putting it on the ground because you can't place crystals on that. Crystals don't blow it up. But then we started noticing, like, the more we placed, we're like, wow, TPS is dropping. Someone must be firing up a lag machine. We didn't think too much about it until the first delete happened, and the TPS was right back to normal. We were like, holy shit.
So Housemaster deleted a whole bunch of the
Yeah, Housemaster
e-tables.
deleted. He deleted them 3 times, actually. He deleted them a lot. But so we noticed that, and we were like, okay. So that at that point, we started trying to build essentially chunk bans out of them. It didn't quite work the same way as one, because you could obviously log in, but for anyone with crappy computers, which, funnily enough, a lot of the spawn PvPers had very crappy computers, I can't tell you how many rage messages there were about, oh my god, I can't even fucking... Excuse me, I can't curse in here, can I?
You can
in any
curse.
case...
You
Oh, okay.
you can
But
curse.
there was a very lot of very ragey messages sent to myself and a lot of members in the incursion about people crashing and whatnot. But the funny thing about all this is a lot of the spawn PvPers ended up joining in and helping us, actually.
I also don't like the reputation that the server gets, mainly by the YouTubers, that it's just this hazardous wasteland where everybody is just an asshole to everybody all the time.
Oh,
But
it's horrible. It
it's
attracts the wrong kind of people.
exactly, and I think that's where we get all of the like the spawn PvPers and all the griefers, because they see this like everybody is terrible. Come be terrible with us.
Yeah, and it's interesting though, because I've seen this process happen so many times, and hell, I have a couple people even now that I'm keeping my eye on for this. They join up, they have the wrong idea about how things work. They come in, their sole purpose is to just destroy things and piss people off. And 6 months down the road, they find that they have no friends left, and they leave because they have nothing else to do here.
Mhm.
I've seen
Rep-
it happen so many times.
yeah, reputations are a big thing on 2B. I mean, your reputation is basically everything. Your reputation is what gets you into groups, and it's what like gets you to cool projects and stuff. But if you ruin it right off the bat, you're basically screwed.
Yeah,
There's
and I mean,
so
I've seen
much.
so many people do that.
There's so
It's
much on this
interesting.
server that nobody ever sees. the massive build projects, huge bases, extremely talented people. And a lot of that just does, fly under the radar and doesn't get noticed.
Yeah. I'd
That's
say like
something that we want to try to change. We want builders to sort of be in the spotlight, which is why DonFuer is such a building focused group.
mhm.
We don't want to be the ones that are like whatever pissing around at spawn or like uploading a grief video with dubstep on it. Like, yeah, we want to be the ones that are
I
like,
think there's
hey,
an
look
art
at
to
this
those,
cool,
actually.
The
look at this cool
dubstep
base.
griefing videos.
Yeah, see, if you take a gander over to my YouTube channel, Shameless Shilling here, you'll notice there is a stark amount of similarities between my content and that sort of content.
You make some excellent shit posts, Joey.
But the way I see it, what's the term? Life imitates art. It's like along those lines. I think there's, I don't know. I think there's a very lot of ideas that are shared between these things that I
Yeah,
lost
so-
my train of thought there.
Yeah, yeah.
In any case,
Well,
though, it's interesting.
let me pick up on your life imitates art thing, because I have an opinion about that. I think it's more than just life imitates art. Art is like condensed life. Art is what's true here, there, this place, the other place. It takes a multitude of truths from a bunch of different people and compresses it into a sort of a hyper real state. Like when you watch a movie, you're not watching, somebody tie their shoes or like go do some mundane task. You're watching a collection of the most exciting things that may have happened to someone over the course of like several years, or
Mhm.
and that's why it's always like the time compression. It's showing you the hyper real world that I guess we all sort of wish we lived in. But the key thing is that it has to be like true. Like art has to reflect truth in a certain way.
That is indeed a philosophy moment.
Right. But how does that translate to building in Minecraft? Basically, I want as a builder to visually communicate to the person who's seeing my build. I want them to see it and think like almost like a part of my personality is in the build. And that is it's so hard to put into words, but it's this, sense of I don't know. I'm at a loss for words.
In other
Yeah, it's a difficult topic to tackle
in other words, building equals
because
art.
like I mean, the short form, yes, but you're discussing how what you're doing reflects you,
Right.
which reflects other people. And I think that's very difficult to put into words without getting very philosophical.
Right. Well, you can look at a sad painting and feel sad in the same way that the painter felt.
Absolutely, that's a mark of a good artist. But what I've ultimately realized, though, is that the fun in building for me, and I hope the fun in building for anybody, is it's in designing it. It's in maybe you make that house and you create a little story for the people that live in that house or something. You really let your creativity go,
Oh boy.
and there's something special about that. I think. And
My
I've only really
my,
recently
my story is that the
picked
house
that
hasn't
up.
been sold yet, and so there's no interior.
I don't know. I think there's so much more to it because like what I always like doing, especially with my builds, I don't like building like I could build a flat stone wall and say that wow, this is a new castle. But why do I want to build it with holes in the walls and some crumbling bits and say, wow, this is an old one. It's at a later stage in its life. It's not some big perfect monolith anymore. There's some problems with it. It's stuff's happened to it. And I think there's a whole new dimension there that a lot of people miss. when you add in things such as that. And a lot of aspects of that I've only picked up recently. I've been building with some people I respect very much, and they've kind of introduced me to that philosophy. But I think there's a whole lot of merit to it.
Oh man.
Certainly, you can tell a story. I kind of like to do that. I think I follow a pattern when I build stuff, and it's like I'll build a couple small houses, and it's like, okay, this is like a village.
Well, why don't you
And
give
then
them
I
all the
build
village
more
stuff? You
stuff,
put
and
a
it's like, well, it's not a village anymore. There's been population growth, and it's now
yeah, you put like a well in that village. You have like, wow, maybe little Timmy over here almost burned down the house yesterday or something,
right.
or maybe this guy really likes his flowers or something. Little things like
There's a
that. I think it
port,
gives
and so
it
maybe
gives a lot of life.
they receive shipments of like fish or something because there's a port.
Exactly. You could do absolutely anything with it. Thing is, it doesn't even matter if it makes sense or not. It doesn't have to.
No.
Because
No.
I think any builder, they should be, or any artist in that general, really, they should be doing it for them more than anything else. Because honestly, fuck the fans. They don't matter. Fuck the audience. They don't matter. It's not about them. I would honestly probably be building in single player with all the stuff that I do had I not made all these friends here. Like, there's so much. The joy in it for me is design. And it doesn't matter too much beyond that for me. Like, I don't get bent under shape when my stuff gets griefed too much. Beyond, lost opportunities. Like, oh, I didn't finish this thing up.
Fuck. Well, okay.
But like,
fuck
the
the
joy in
fans.
it for me is design. Exactly. Fuck the fans. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the fun. It's.
I don't know.
I
kind of got to
movie
disagree.
code, right?
I kind of got to disagree with you there. Like,
yeah.
I think I have a different philosophy. Like, I build for the enjoyment, but part of my enjoyment is seeing other people's reactions. Part of my enjoyment is showing off what I've done and other people, appreciating it, and that's part of the enjoyment for me. That's why I'm doing it in multiplayer and not just building in a creative mode.
There's a kind of cringy movie quote that I think really captures my view on this. And I think I'm probably going to get made fun of a lot for even saying this, but so there's this movie, right? There's this guy in it that so you know how COVID, right? There was these people that were eating a certain a flying I guess rodent, right? Well, there's this movie about a guy that's named after a certain flying rodent, and there's like a clown in it or something. And he says this thing about what is it? It's not about the money. It's about sending a message. And I think it's so true with for artwork, as that was what it should be. Actually, something that really bothers me is the over-commodification of artwork. I mean, like YouTube people, for instance. I'm not a fan of the whole YouTube format in general, to be honest. And that's what the servers become, for that matter. You have your. It's not a donation. I think anyone can see that. I hope everyone can see that. You're paying to play a game. You're paying to make artwork with your friends, and I think there's something honestly rather disgusting about that. Beyond, okay, I understand there's server costs, but $20 a month, really, you don't need that.
It's a business opportunity. Any good business person
It is a business.
Would teach. The first lesson of business is coming up with an idea and learning how to monetize that idea.
But here's the thing, though, that always gets me is like, why should a community be an economic resource?
Facebook.
I think there's something wrong there. I think I have very serious objections to Facebook. I don't have an account. I don't use it. It data mines you. You become the product, and that's the same way with 2B.
Yeah. Well, it's paying to have access to a social environment. People are very social creatures. You could think about a bar the same way. How many people go out to a bar or a nightclub to socialize? Like, they're not going there to drink. You could do that at home.
But for instance, like,
they're going there to socialize.
I played here for over a year without paying anything. I'd hop on, I'd see some really weird people, and I'd just, sit down with the popcorn. I mean,
right.
Now suddenly I have to pay for that? That's pretty messed up.
I get, that makes sense, but at the same time, the server wouldn't exist without PrioQ and without that funding.
It
Right.
still would. Housemaster's income from this is actually quite insane. So he
Well,
contracts
yeah,
out the
he's
work.
making more than he needs to.
He contracts out the work. He doesn't even have to put in labor anymore. I'm sure he still does some stuff to defray some costs, but with the income he is making, he could theoretically contract everything out if he wanted to.
Imagine putting on your resume that you're a former 2B2T manager or something.
Oh God.
That is a resume piece, to be honest. There's some serious technical problems to overcome. I mean, communities like this, I swear, there's people just trying to break stuff all the time. I mean, you guys have seen it for sure.
Oh
And
yeah,
there's a huge group of people on the
that's
server
true.
that is their entire goal is to make the server suffer.
The fucking no
SBC.
server November, no server
No
November
server.
people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, and also the client developers constantly trying to exploit. So it is a hard job, but is it $20 a month hard job?
What's
It's hard
that?
on the
You banned Elytra?
it's hard on
Well,
the
surprise.
contractors that House puts out. But the thing that it's really hard on is it's hard on their pocketbooks. They're having some real trouble holding all that cash. That's my view anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the common defense of that is you don't have to play here. Like, go find another server, go play on a server that doesn't require you to pay $20 a month.
But see, when people say that, I think that's really a cop out, to be honest.
There are alternatives.
How-
They just
how
suck.
so?
I digress.
But I mean, I think a lot of people join to be like for the server, for this is going to be a LARP moment, but for the history and for the legacy of 2B2T, and then they end up staying for the people that they meet. Like, join for the server and stay for the friends. And I'm kind of defeating my own point here, but I mean, like, a lot of people join here and people always stay here. Nobody moves off, so you have to stay here as well.
Oh, people definitely move off. That's why there's so many clones.
It is kind of a revolving door.
There's a lot of 2B2T clones out there. There are alternatives. If you don't want to pay for PrioQ, there are plenty of other servers that are Anarchy and that are similar. And hell,
But none of them are really the same, though.
sure, but some of them are probably less toxic. You might have a better time playing on those than playing on 2B.
Yeah.
It depends.
Odds
Like,
are you very well might.
I
See,
played
what
on
it really falls down to, I think,
you know,
is
I've
it's
played
actually
on
a sunken
several.
cost fallacy. But here I am. I'm still playing. Hell, I'm building right now. So
I've played on several 2B2T clones in the past. You know, AMC, Hermetic Locks, 2B2T clone that used to exist. There's a DonFuer branch on Nether Anarchy right now. There's all kinds of like. I've had experiences on 2B and on the other Anarchy servers, and at the end of the day, it is the same thing. It's just on a much smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, some people like that. If you want to go play on the smaller scale, then, you know, go ahead.
that.
It's like playing in minor league baseball versus major league baseball. The only difference is that the competition is much fiercer, and the amount of people watching you is much greater.
Right.
But I object to the idea that people like shouldn't have to pay for access to a social space, because that happens all the time and has been happening forever. Like, again, I'll use the example of like a nightclub that you pay to get into. That's just a social space that people are paying to get into. It's not unusual to pay for that. It's just unusual for you to pay to be in a Minecraft server.
Well,
yeah, it's really, you put it into perspective, and it just becomes ridiculous. I mean, you're paying $20 a month to play with other weird people in a child's game. That's
Yeah.
what it equates to be honest.
It's kind of like an MMO, basically, where you have a monthly subscription. That's kind of like what it is.
on
Zeiss,
that
do you have anything else to
depressing
add?
note, nope. On that depressing note, I think we're gonna end it there. and a good discussion today. Well, so thank you to Joey for joining us, and we will see you next time. Oh,
Thanks.
also, if you're interested in joining DonFuer, you can go to donfuer.com and send in an application.
This has been the DonFuer podcast. Thank you so much for listening.